audio.
Okay, I am now recording the video version. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. I am your host, the iTunes Fanboy, and we also have the co-host, Tabbypears.
Hi.
Okay, so in this episode, we will be talking about the iPhone 14 rumors and whatever else we can think of.
This is gonna be good.
Okay, so you know how every year in the iPhone lineups, all the new iPhones every fall get the brand new chip?
Yeah, apparently this year they're not gonna be doing that.
Yes, so the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max are still going to be getting the A16 chip, which will be the next one. But the iPhone 14 and 14 Max, yes, we'll get to those in a minute. They are still going to have the A15 chip.
I don't understand that because, in my opinion, this is going to cause a lot of issues in the lineup, since if we're gonna have the iPhone 14, the normal 14, and the iPhone 13 Pro having the same chip, then people will think that the iPhone 14 Pro will have the same chip as the iPhone 15 normal, if that makes sense. But I do think that adding a Max to the regular 14 will really help the lineup, because not a lot of people want the Pro features, but they have to buy the Pro Max to get a bigger display.
I think that should personally be the opposite, because a bigger display is part of the Pro features. So I think that should be the opposite.
Yeah, I understand that.
I
They're
still
also
think
going
that
to be removing the notch on the Pros this year, correct?
yes, we'll get to that in a minute also, but I personally think that the regular 14, this is what I think the 14 lineup should be. The 14 mini, just the standard 14, which would be like the 14 Pro, and the 14 Pro Max, which I would call it the 14 Plus, which would be like the 14 Pro Max.
I would really like to see more mini iPhones, but unfortunately it seems like they're doing away with that, probably because too many people were complaining about the battery life on those.
People weren't really complaining about the 13 mini's battery life, though.
I never had issues with either's battery. Like, for me, I would use the phone a good bit on 5G, and I wouldn't really have issues.
Yeah. And Jordan Riddles, who just got a 12 mini for Christmas, who will also be a guest on the podcast in the future, he says that he has no issues with his 12 mini's battery life either.
Yeah, I put like 80 charges on it in about a month, but that was with very heavy usage. That was when I was using my phone as my primary device to test out the 12 mini, and I had no issues with it, especially coming from a 12 Pro Max, which has battery life that I don't know how anybody would kill.
Yeah. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't think that the 14 Max should be in existence. Because the issue is, when you offer too many options, your phone isn't just competing with other companies' phones, but your phones are literally competing against each other.
Yeah, I get that, because if you look at the Samsung lineup, there's the A series, which, if you look at the A01 compared to the A10e, the A10e only has one camera when the A01 has two. And the A10e technically has better specs than the A01, even though the A01 has a bigger display. And my friend in real life recently got a Galaxy A12, I believe. He's since broken it, but he had that phone, and I had my S21, which didn't work at the time, but I put it next to the A13, or A12, I forgot. But the A12 had a bigger display, so I was thinking, why is the flagship phone smaller than the $130 budget phone? Plus, the budget phone had all kinds of other features. Like, it had 4 cameras, like a headphone jack. It's such a value. Even though the S21 has better displays, better cameras, it's still kind of competing a lot against the A12, which is a $180 phone, I think, unlocked, and like $130 on contract.
Yes, that makes yes. Samsung for like I can't even memorize all the Samsung series of phones.
Yeah, and everyone forgot about the S20 Ultra because it was such a weird phone to release.
Yes, like and there's even big differences in the S22 lineup. Like
Yeah, because they got rid of a lot of features on the S21, which is actually one of the reasons I don't fully main an Android anymore. And I don't know if you know, but I do have an S22 that I have yet to make a video on. But it's a really nice phone. But the issue is, it got rid of a lot of features that we had in the S8, S9, S10, S20. But it just got rid of all these features for no reason, really.
well, they want to make it more affordable, but it's the professional grade lineup. So why would you want to make the highest end smartphone more affordable?
Yeah, plus the plastic back, everyone says, is fine because it doesn't shatter. But the issue is, it feels very cheap. On my S21, I could not stand that phone without a case because the back just felt so bad. Like, it was unbelievably cheap feeling. The phone felt hollow, and it made me actually not want to use the phone.
Yes, you can't have an expense. Like I think the S22 starts at like $900.
Yeah, and the S22 is a nice phone, but it just got rid of so many features, and that's what really kills it for a lot of people
Yes.
while buying a phone.
Samsung has also started to copy Apple a lot along with
Yeah,
everybody
with
else.
with a lot of the features that the S21 added, it came directly from iPhones in a way. And I don't think that Apple really copies Samsung because there's basic features that Samsung implements that Apple just implements as well. It's not like they're copying, it's just basic features that they both implement.
Yes, and Samsung even knew. And the irritating part is that Samsung actually has an eye test feature, a little web app, which basically recreates the experience of an S21. I don't know if they've upgraded it for the S22 yet, but it's a web app for
Yeah,
iPhones.
I used that on my 12 Pro last year when I wanted to see how similar it was. So I brought my S21 next to my 12 Pro. And the funny thing is, it was such a laggy experience, especially next to my actual S21, which I was maining throughout a lot of the time that I was testing that app out.
Yes, and yes, that's not going to convince people to buy Samsung phones.
Yeah, especially when the eye test has all these weird jokes and stuff in it that make no sense.
Like, did you know?
Like,
Like, do you remember that joke that said that no turtleneck wearer should dictate how your phone looks when when they
yeah,
were showing
they
the
were they were imitating a dead CEO
yes,
of
Steve Jobs.
a
No, I'm pretty sure Tim Cook doesn't wear turtlenecks.
yeah. Tim Cook wears like more normal stuff. Steve
Yeah.
Jobs is famous for his turtleneck.
Yes. Do you know what Theranos is?
No, I don't.
Theranos was basically a failure. Theranos was a startup company that was fraud, basically, but it claimed that it was going to reinvent the medical industry via you could get all these results via just one thing of blood, but it wasn't an actual machine. It was all fraud. but the company's founder, Elizabeth Holmes, was nicknamed the female Steve Jobs because she wore turtlenecks a lot.
Yeah, the health industry has had a lot of schemes in the past.
Yes, I don't under. Yes, that's not the point of this podcast. But Samsung's been doing that multi-option thing for a long time because.
Yeah, it really annoys me, and you've probably heard me on Instagram saying, why does Samsung do this? Because it's something that has really been annoying me for about a year now. Because it was about 1 year ago that I bought my S21, and I was tired of using my 12 Pro because it wasn't really a horrible phone, but it was just the fact that that phone just got boring to me quickly. But the S21 did not really feel like an upgrade from my Pixel 3.
Yes, and it's not just that. And it's not just that either, Buffy. But my aunt, for Christmas 2020, gave me her really old Samsung Reality phone from 2010. And it is such a terrible smartphone compared to other higher end phones like the Samsung Galaxy S1 from that same year.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of, I go in the recycling bins and I get phones. I'm not sure if you know about that, but I've got a lot of old Samsung phones, and I actually have an original Galaxy S. And comparing that to even something from HTC is just such a difference because the Samsung Galaxy S just feels so slow nowadays, and the software doesn't hold up, but the HTC software feels more modern, and it actually holds up.
Yes, and I don't like how Apple's going down this route too of offering lots and lots of options. Because
I think that they should get rid of the 11, like the normal 11, and the 12 mini, and probably the 12 later this year, because it doesn't make sense to have all those. If you look back at the 2010 lineup, we had the iPhone 3GS
and the 4.
Yeah, and I think that was it. And everyone knew exactly what the differences were. But
yes,
now,
this started back in 2013 when Apple offered the iPhone 5C. But let's go back to before the 5C was introduced, back when the 5 was the latest iPhone. You either got the 5, which started at $200, or if you wanted a slightly cheaper option, you would get the 8GB 4S, which started at $100, and you get a 4 free with a contract.
My dad actually had the 5, and my sister got a 4S. And they were very different, but they were both very usable. And whenever my sister upgraded to a 5C, I got the 4S, and I used it fine in 2015. And I also had my dad's 5, which was still pretty much fully usable. And it was only around 2017 when the 4S became unusable because everything stopped supporting A9.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, I think that the option of too many options is just too confusing. I do think with the iPad it does. I do think with the iPad it's also a similar situation.
Yeah, especially with the new minis and the Airs, because previously the iPad Pro was really the iPad Air. Then they got rid of the Air for a few years, and now they're bringing the Air back. And they should really just get rid of the iPad 9, make that the Air 5, I believe we're on, right? The Air 5.
Yeah.
And add a flashlight to the Air 5 so it matches the Mini, and then make the Pro a little bit cheaper, and I think that we would have the perfect lineup.
Or what I think they should do is they should just sell the previous highest end iPads over the course of the past few years, to where this way you could just buy an older iPad if you couldn't afford the latest and greatest one.
Yeah, because I actually made a video earlier this year on the iPad Pro 2018.
Yeah?
And it's really usable, unlike some other devices that Apple sold back then. But it's really usable. And back then, you could get, I think you could still get the iPad Air 2 for a good price, and it wasn't that usable. But now, you could get an iPad Pro 9.7 and still call it usable.
I actually don't. I actually have one, but I don't really. But the reason why I don't use that anymore as my daily iPad is because the battery is just so degraded on it.
Did you buy that new, or whose was it originally?
I got it from Santa Claus back in 2019. Back in 2019, that was supposedly an open box listing, even though I know for a fact that it wasn't, because that there's no way the battery would be that degraded if it was just a little over 2 years old.
Yeah, I think Apple really needs to add battery health to the iPad.
I know. In the iPad Pro now at 7 inches, even though the manual is for iOS 10, it came on iPadOS 13, which was also another obvious red flag.
It's definitely not new. But there is actually a way to see the battery health on an iPad with a Siri shortcut, and it will tell you what the battery health would be.
You can also do it via Coconut Battery.
Yeah, I have Coconut Battery Plus.
I just have the regular Coconut Battery.
Yeah, I've been using that tool for a few years. But in other news, I am actually using an iPhone XS.
I know.
I don't think anyone would have thought that I would ever do that, but it's not giving me as many issues as I thought it was, but Face ID is dead, the battery's very degraded, and the screen is popping up. So I'm excited to get my 13 Pro back from Apple.
Yes. Let's go back to the iPhone 4, what we were originally talking about, the iPhone 14 lineup.
Yeah.
So, another thing about the iPhone 14, the biggest new feature of the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max will be satellite connectivity.
Yeah, and that was rumored on the 13 Pro too.
Yeah, but that's going to be coming officially to the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, which though it sounds like a big gimmick, you can connect to satellite. It actually is not a big gimmick, because what this will do is, unlike Starlink, where you just connect to a Wi-Fi network that is transmitted over satellites, the iPhone will be able to connect directly to satellites, meaning that, let's say you're out in a very rural area where there's no cell service or no Wi-Fi, you will be able to text or call 911 or a friend or something via a satellite.
I think they should add this functionality to Apple Watches too, because Apple Watches are used as emergency devices commonly.
I know.
And my grandma might actually get an Apple Watch for the fall detection.
Yeah, that's actually what sold my grandmother into getting an Apple Watch.
Yeah, I think the fall detection is actually a very crucial feature.
Yes, I know. Yes, my grandmother doesn't have... You can set it to where it shows your whole medical ID and such, too, which is pretty handy.
Yeah.
But that is so much better than the iPhone... You know those iPhone I can't get up necklaces?
Yeah, those are cheap, they'll break, they probably don't have the best connection. Those ones are just really cheap, that you're meant to use once, and maybe in an emergency it'll work. I'm surprised those haven't gotten... I'm surprised that the people behind those haven't gotten sued yet.
Yes. My great-grandmother, before she passed away, she actually had one of those. That was back in like 2010, between 2008 to 2010. But those were, and she had an okay experience with them, but then only in 2010 would we get the iPod Nano 6th generation, which people use as watches.
Yeah, I've saw a few people do that.
My mother actually considered getting an iPod Nano 6th generation to use as a watch back when they were new, even though she had an iPhone. But she never did. And they're obviously very discontinued now, and she has an Apple Watch now.
Yeah, I had one of them in 2020. Unfortunately, the battery loaded up on it, but it was a nice little device. But I think that it's just not really worth it to use as a watch or anything, just because of how weak it is and how you really can't set it to wake up on a wrist flick.
Well, it wasn't really designed to be a watch in the first place. It was just the perfect size to be one.
Yeah, but Steve Jobs did figure out that people were using those as watches and add more watch faces, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, Steve. I'm sure he probably knew that. It was originally just a joke of using the iPod as a watch among Apple executives, but then that turned into an actual tradition.
Yeah, and people were doing it up until the Apple Watch came out.
And even do you know who 91 Tech is?
Yeah, he's good.
He actually even after the Apple Watch came out, he actually got one when his original iPod Nano 6th generation got in the washing machine, and
Yeah, that's happened to my iPhone 6S.
Yeah, but because he couldn't afford an Apple Watch at the time, he got one, but he was able to put an Apple Watch home screen on his iPod Nano 6th generation and trick people into thinking he had an Apple Watch before they became too common to differentiate.
That's really cool.
My grandfather has dropped his phone in the toilet twice. In water twice. This was way before phones were water resistant. The first, I think one of the times he just dropped in the toilet, and the other one he actually left in his pocket when he put his pants in the washing machine, and you know what happened.
Yeah. My dad had a BlackBerry Pearl back way before the iPhone even came out, back in like 2005, 2006. And it went in the toilet, and it was dead about a week after purchasing it, unfortunately. So that ended up being one of my play phones when I was really little. And his iPhone 10 also had that happen. But that phone survived perfectly, even though the SIM card tray was damaged, so it technically wasn't water resistant. And I have water damaged a good bit of phones, just by taking them into the pool and doing stupid stuff with them, pretty much. But the most famous is probably when I took my iPhone 7 into the bathtub a week after buying it, and I completely water damaged it. That was not a fun day. I remember just having the home button die on it, but Apple did replace it for free.
Yeah, my dad, whenever my dad takes baths, he uses a Kindle Fire to watch stuff on a little stand that he has for it, just because he doesn't want it to be a major loss if it falls in the water, because iPads aren't water resistant yet.
Yeah, you could get Apple Care, and that would cover a bit more of the cost. But my dad pretty much uses an iPad Pro M1 all day long. He doesn't really use an actual computer. He has an iMac M1, but he uses the iPad probably 8 hours a day, and he loves that thing. He uses it all day.
Yeah, for me, my iPad is my primary device.
Your what?
My iPad is my primary device.
Yeah, my MacBook and my iPad are what I use whenever I'm home, and whenever I'm out and about, I tend to use my Apple Watch and my phone a lot. I try to use my iPad as much as I can, since I do have a really nice iPad, and I do really enjoy using this iPad. It's been an amazing experience using the iPad Pro M1.
Yeah, my dad actually considered getting the iPad Pro M1 to replace his laptop, but he didn't. He just got a ThinkPad.
Yeah, it's not really a laptop replacement, but it is definitely, as Steve Jobs called it, a very good in-between device.
Yes.
But on the iPhone 14, I hope they do bring USB-C to the iPhone, even though I don't think they will. But I will definitely upgrade to this iPhone, just because I want to give my mom my 13 Pro after I upgrade, so she's not using a more than 2 generation old phone. So I will upgrade and buy the 14 Pro or Pro Max, and I'll probably use that for a year.
Yeah, I can totally understand that kind of stuff, but yeah. The Apple's actually working on gray bubbles that will show when your iPhone is being that will be used whenever you're texting your friend or something through a satellite.
They should add RCS support if you know what RCS is.
Oh yes, I saw your video about that, but I don't think Apple should add RCS support to iPhones for a few good reasons.
For me, it makes sense why they would, because it doesn't just make them look better, but it gives them the upper hand, because they could make Android users think, wow, so the iPhone has RCS and it's a great texting experience, so what would iMessage be like if I got an iPhone?
I think that would be harmful because, number one, most Android phones don't actually have RCS or use it.
A lot of the new ones do. My S22 and my Pixel 6 Pro did.
Yeah, but Alpha Day Wolf, who will of course be a guest on the podcast in May, he has a couple of family members who both use mid-range Samsung phones, and they don't have RCS support.
Yeah, my family all uses iPhones. My dad has a 13 Pro, Mom has my old 12 Pro Max, and of course I will be using a 13 Pro soon, but I have a 10S now.
Yeah, my whole family pretty much uses iPhone. My whole immediate family pretty much uses iPhones.
Yeah, I think that everyone in my extended family uses Samsung Galaxy Notes, I believe.
Most of my extended family uses iPhones also, but there's a few Androids in the mix.
Yeah, I definitely like being able to iMessage people, which is actually one of the reasons I will probably be staying on iPhones again this year, instead of switching fully to the S22.
Yeah, the iPhone. Yeah, and also there's a major problem with RCS, which is actually security, because you might think, well, no, but with RCS, you can't just hack a cell tower and get access to people's messages like you can with SMS and MMS. But RCS is a technology powered by Google, who does not have a very good history with our data. And Apple probably wouldn't want to implement a Google service into their phone anyways.
Yeah, I don't know why Google doesn't just make it like a third-party app on the App Store at this point.
Yeah, Google wants you to use Android phones for RCS. That's the obvious reason.
Yeah, plus RCS probably wouldn't work that well on a third-party app.
Yeah.
Same with iMessage on Android. It wouldn't really work well on a third-party app, as many of the apps that I've used actually work, but they're just very bad and they lose connection very often. And they need a computer to be the host.
Yeah, that's obviously a pretty big disadvantage, but I just don't see RCS coming because Apple wouldn't want to implement Google service into their devices, because especially considering that they're getting ready to launch their own search engine.
I think that the Apple search engine will probably be very biased, but it will be fast since it will probably only run on Apple devices.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Google is biased too, so...
Yeah, pretty much every search engine is biased, unfortunately.
Yeah. Even DuckDuckGo has started to be biased.
Yeah, that's something that really annoys me because they said that they're going to stay unbiased until something comes that they don't agree with.
Yes, and obviously now with the Russia-Ukraine war going on, they're starting to get more biased, but that's not really a topic for the podcast.
Yeah, it's a personal topic for many people.
Yeah, so...
I do wonder what the iPhone 14 will add software-wise, because the 13 was really not the biggest upgrade. It wasn't a minor upgrade, but it was definitely something that people did not see coming, because even with the bigger area between the notch, you really still didn't have features that we should have got years ago. As I've said many times, and as I will still say, we need to see the battery percentage in the notch.
Oh yes, I agree with that totally.
Yeah, because I also think that they should also let us customize what we have in the notch, because when was the last time that actual people were worried about their cell signal strength or their Wi-Fi signal strength?
I don't know. They're funny on iOS 7. On iOS 7. They have a jailbreak tweak to where you can literally customize the status bar.
I've seen a lot of those. That I was trying to get working on iOS 12 actually, but unfortunately none of them work on iOS 12.
Yes, that's so irritating because Apple needs to bring just basic stuff that jailbreak tweaks have had for years. I don't know, what about a 5-icon dock?
Yeah, I would actually really like to see that because the iPad has such a nice dock.
I just got a random text from somebody who I don't know.
Is it spam?
Yep.
What does it say? I guess it's some, healthcare scam?
No, it's pretending to be somebody I know, even though it's an area code I do not recognize.
Probably some bot scam, honestly. I've got a few of those a while back.
Yeah. That's the first scam I've actually gotten through iMessage.
Yeah, I know this guy named Jacob Mitchell. He constantly gets these weird Hotmail numbers. Will iMessage him with 18 plus video links.
Somebody just texted that they smell like the spam number texted that they smell like applesauce. I'm going to go block this person.
Applesauce?
Yes.
I've seen people, there's someone that was trolling me saying they smell like applesauce on Instagram a long time back, a year back. Pretty sure it's just some common phrase.
Yeah.
It's probably a troll that somehow found your info, but
Yeah,
on the iPhone 14, I also want to see better front-facing cameras and Face ID technology. Because the front-facing camera has stayed largely the same since the 11 Pro, and it's nice, but a lot of these Android phones are giving us wide angle and all of that, and whenever me and my friend and Elias were at the mall, my iPhone SE 2 just really did not have a good enough field of view on the lens.
Yeah, I can understand stuff like that.
Yeah. It sucked, but the camera on the 13 Pro, like the normal camera, is very good, and I don't think that it needs to be that much better. But there is a lot of stuff like the wide-angle camera that should be better, and the telephoto camera, because I found myself actually wanting a lot more quality out of those cameras since they're just not really high res. I'm not sure if you've noticed that on your 11 Pro Max or not when using wide angle.
I only use the main camera lens. I don't ever use the other ones.
Yeah, if you wanted to check it out, it's very low quality for whatever reason.
Again, they're cutting corners.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's not like Samsung doesn't do that, because Samsung does that constantly too.
Like with the plastic thing.
Yeah, that's really been annoying me. But luckily they're actually done with that, I think. Since my S22 does have a full glass back and metal sides and glass front.
Yeah.
And I hope that Apple doesn't go to plastic designs anytime soon. But I think the iPhone XR is good enough proof that even the budget iPhones won't get weird designs.
Yeah, they don't get... Yeah, now let's talk about the weirdest part of the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. The eye hole.
The punch-out camera.
Yes, because you know how it looks like there's a pill right next to a camera? Like right next to a hole punch? Which looks like an eye if you put it in a certain position?
Yeah.
Like the letter lowercase I. Not an actual eye like we see with.
Yeah, I don't know why they would do that, because it doesn't make sense. What are you going to put in between the line and like the little dot? Because if you put something like a UI element there, it's going to be too small to really notice. But if you put nothing there, it's going to be a waste of space.
Yes, and it's not just that either, but it's like... It's not just that either, but it's that... I think they have to integrate the Face ID sensors too. But why can't they just have an in-display fingerprint sensor?
Yeah, I have had some experience with those, and in my opinion, the in-display fingerprint sensors are not that reliable. I've tried using them, and they just don't seem that good to me, honestly. My S22's is okay at best, but it's like the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro were more secure, but they failed 50% of the time, even without a screen protector.
Yeah. I'm holding Orangey, by the way.
Oh, that's nice.
And now Beezus is coming onto the podcast. I guess all of a sudden it's cat time.
Beezus. I think the 14 Pro should also have more of a priority on thinness, since the batteries on these new iPhones are long enough where they will last any user over a day, unless they're being used for very prolonged camera usage. But I also think there's a point where we have too much battery life and where it's going to be harmful to people, since they're going to be more addicted to their phone.
Yes, and unfortunately TikTok is an obvious example of people being addicted to their phones.
Yeah, that app is... Oh, I can't stand that app.
That's why I'm not on TikTok, is because it's the worst app ever. Like,
The
all
worst-
everybody
the
does
worst
is complain on it.
Everyone complains and makes goofy videos that make no sense. And there's YouTube Shorts, on the other hand, which is actually good because YouTube knows what I want to watch, and they actually apply that to YouTube Shorts. And
Yes, like they're trying to get everybody.
Stuff that I like.
They're trying to get everybody to watch the same type of content with TikTok.
Yeah, because I get recommended everything on YouTube Shorts. I get recommended Call of Duty videos, I get recommended iPhone videos, cat videos, all kinds of stuff.
Yep. And Beezus is Beezus, she just knocked...
What's going on there?
She just knocked down my water thermos.
Oh, is anything spilled?
Nope.
Oh. Made a loud noise.
Yes, it's metal, so...
I do think that Google phones are spying on people with the microphones, because when I had my Pixel 6, I was talking to a family member about politics, and all of a sudden, I got an ad on my phone for exactly what I was talking about. And it really, really got me thinking. If Google is spying on you, then what good is that little, have you heard that there's a microphone access mode in the notification center on Android 12?
No, I've never used an Android 12, so I have no idea.
So, there's a toggle to toggle the microphone on or off, and I don't trust it at all, because who's to say that works if it's Google behind this? And
yeah.
Google's always listening with these devices. Even if they're not sending it to the government or something, they're definitely listening.
Yeah, you know what? Even more creepy part about Google with privacy is that I'm sure you're well aware of the fact that they acquired Fitbit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably didn't know they've also acquired Garmin.
So Garmin and Fitbit are pretty much the same thing now?
Yep. And you know what they're doing with people's health data?
Selling it to some weird people?
Nope. They're selling all your medical data to their insurance companies, to where the insurance companies can deny you health insurance.
Yeah, just what we need. More people selling data to insurance companies. And that's why I refuse to use my real name on anything except for my Apple ID.
Yeah. I don't even use my real name on my Apple ID.
Yeah, most of the time I go by the name Tabbypears just because it's just whatever my YouTube channel is, and it's also what I go by on social media.
Yeah.
Because the tabby type cat, I really like those.
I have several tabby cats.
Yeah, I only have one cat, unfortunately, but I'm gonna get some more soon.
How many more?
Probably one. Hopefully, like one or maybe two. I really want an orange Maine Coon cat. I really like those.
Every time I put Beezus back down again, she just comes right back up here.
Milo likes to do that sometimes at night on my bed.
Oh well, this is not a cat podcast. This is a technology podcast. So, getting back to my main point with Apple, the iPhone 14. The iPhone 14 I still think that Apple should also have an in-display speaker for calls.
Like the LG phones did?
Yeah, Yeah, just because it's so much, makes so much more sense to where and they could even have an invisible And I've even seen some phones with invisible cameras, to where they
Yeah,
could do
the
something like that
Fold
on the front
3.
to make it better.
Galaxy Z Fold 3 has it, I believe, and I actually checked it out at Best Buy.
Yeah.
What do you think of right to repair?
I think it's awesome.
I think it's cool, and I definitely think that Apple needs to pay more attention to this, since they did say that they were going to sell people their own service parts. Although I can't find any more information past the original article on it. And I was going to get my 12 mini fixed myself with the service parts, but it looks like I might not be able to, since it's passing Q2 2022 soon, and they said it would be available in early 2022.
Yeah. Technically, I
also think,
consider early 2022 between January and April, but we're getting a little more on the April side now.
Yeah. I also think that the inside of the iPhones needs to be a bit less complicated, since when I fixed my iPhone XS, it had a dead screen. It was not hard, but it's like getting into it, I actually damaged the frame a good bit just trying to get in, since the adhesive was so strong.
Well, that's what makes them water resistant too, you know.
Yeah, and that is something I care about on phones. I also opened my MacBook Pro up to clean it about 2 months ago, and it was pretty easy to open, actually, surprisingly, although there is no modular components, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really a shame. I do wish that there was upgradability in the MacBook Pro in MacBooks now in iMacs and such nowadays.
Yeah, since if I could swap out my SSD on my old MacBook Pro 2018, I probably would have kept it for a bit longer instead of upgrading, because I had the base model Mac. I had 256 gigs of storage, and when I was recording in 4K 60, I just filled that thing up every day, and I had to get all kinds of external disks to offload everything onto.
Yeah, that is unfortunately an irritate. Yes, that. Hang on, I'm thinking about how to structure my sentence here. But
Right?
yeah, there are technical. Yes, like there should still be upgradable Macs.
Yeah, they have made progress by selling Mac Pro SSDs on the Apple Store now.
But most people usually get the amount of storage they need in the first place.
Yeah, I did that on my 14-inch MacBook Pro. I got 1 terabyte, and I haven't filled it up yet, so that's very good.
Yep.
Yeah, and onto the iPhone 14 point, what I was getting at is, since they are doing the self-service now, I wonder if the iPhone 14 will have an easier to repair design.
I'm sure they're probably going to be doing they might be doing something like that, or they might try and make it harder too, to purposely make it to where you'll wind up breaking your iPhone opening it, and to where you'll have to get fixed by Apple.
You actually do have a point there. That would make a lot of sense for Apple to do that on their part.
Yeah, it would make perfect sense for Apple.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it seems like that might be the route that they would take. But I used to be really big on right to repair, but now it's definitely important. But I don't think it's the most important thing ever right now. But I definitely think that there should be more steps taken to make repair easier on these phones.
Yes, and Yes, and I think on laptops and desktops, I think Apple should just switch to flash storage.
Like USB, what do you mean flash storage?
I mean, like what iPhones and iPads use.
Those are a lot slower, though.
I mean, like they could make a budget model. They could make a MacBook SE, I guess you could call it, with flash storage. It would be unupgradable, of course, but it would make a ton of sense for form factor and such.
We almost have the MacBook SE with the iPad Pro M1 at this point.
Yes, it's just that iPadOS though it can replace consumer grade laptops somewhat, it can't exactly replace professional grade laptops.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I think that Apple should just start. So with iPadOS 16, iOS 16, I'm hoping Apple adds something like Samsung DeX.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Because that's actually a feature I do like it with Samsungs.
I have used it before to get data off of a smashed phone.
Yeah, exactly. And DIY Perks actually used it to recycle a broken smartphone into a working laptop.
That's really cool.
Do you know who DIY Perks is?
I saw some of his videos. I think didn't he make an old laptop screen into a monitor?
I think that's what he did, and yeah, he did that, and he also did that collaboration with Mr. Who's the Boss.
I've heard of him. He used to drop test the mouse cases.
Yeah, Mr. Who's the Boss is a pretty popular tech reviewer.
And someone just hacked my iCloud, apparently.
Mine too.
Really? Someone just hacked your iCloud?
Yep.
Oh, wait. Never mind. Someone just scam emails. I get a lot of those. Yeah, but I think the mouse cases are probably the best cases there is. Just because of the AeroShock material in them. And I'm probably going to buy another one eventually.
I just got a bunch of spam messages again, so I have to go ahead and delete those.
It's weird. Is it just like scammers?
No, it's actually... You know that troll on your channel?
Which one?
The something hacker?
Oh, yeah, the Jewish hacker, yeah.
Yeah, he's gotten a hold of my iMessage.
Yeah, he did that to me before. He called me, like Tabbert or something like that. Something weird. He was like, "Hey, Tabbert, what's up?" And I was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "It's me, the Jewish hacker." And I said, "Well, you got my phone number. How exactly?" He said, "I got it off Google." And I'm like, "Well, where's my phone number on Google?" Yeah, how would you get I was at the time 14. I was like, "How would you get a 14-year-old's number off of Google?" And he was like, "I don't know. Look it up." Weirdest stuff I've ever had happen.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, that was a bit... Yeah, that's a little bit scary how somebody has my official stuff, personal stuff.
Yeah, hopefully he won't do anything malicious with it.
Luckily, I did delete the conversations and report them as junk, obviously.
Good. What kind of case do you use on your phones?
On my iPhone 11 Pro Max, I have which is my main phone, I have just a regular case.
I use, on my 10S, I don't really use a case. And on my 13 Pro, I use either a Rhino Shield case or an Apple silicone case.
Yeah.
I do wish that Apple cases had a bit more protection, though.
And their Apple cases are expensive too.
Yeah, I remember when I bought my silicone case, it was really expensive, and it's definitely a nice case, especially with MagSafe, but it's just so expensive for what you're getting.
Yes, I do agree. They are expensive, and I actually got a case at Walmart around a little over a week ago, which is what I'm using currently on my 11 Pro Max, and it's pretty protective and it's pretty good because the original silicone case I got was deteriorated.
Yeah, my Apple silicone case actually did kind of fall apart after using it for about 2 weeks.
It fell apart after 2 weeks?
Yeah, so I'm not sure where I put it. It's in my case box, but the sides started to fall apart after like very simple drops. Like one off my desk, and it made no sense because it was such a solid feeling case. So I didn't understand why it was falling apart. And I also had one on my 13 mini, and it also had a similar issue.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I did have a smart battery case on my old 11 Pro, and it was probably the best case I've ever owned. I really wish they still sold the smart battery cases. It gave a lot of protection, and it gave more battery. Just such a nice case all around.
Yeah, it is definitely a nice case. My $160 Apple keyboard case for my iPad 7th generation, which I got for Christmas of 2020, started falling apart last summer.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. My dad had one on his old iPad Pro years ago. It was the original version for the 9.7-inch iPad Pro. And it just fell apart after a while. Like, the entire thing started falling apart, and most recently, his case for his 2020 iPad Pro straight up just melted.
Yeah, cases generally don't seem to stay good for long.
Yeah, it's really weird to see how it, like, kind of melted. And he bought a new one, and it did the same thing. And my mom's case did the same thing too. So these cases just tend to have a very low heat sensitivity, I guess.
Yes, which is a bit of a disadvantage because there's obviously a season called summer.
Yeah, my favorite one personally.
Mine too.
Yeah, and I didn't really understand how, it just melted, but it got really bad eventually, to the point where it was just peeling off completely.
Yeah, that was probably no fun.
Yeah, but other than that, I do like the Apple keyboard cases since they don't need Bluetooth to connect.
Yes, like they're very. When I originally got my iPad 7, when I originally was interested in getting a keyboard for my iPad 7th generation, I originally considered getting the Logitech one that uses the smart connector. And after reading the reviews of that compared to the Apple one, I decided to just get the Apple one.
Yeah, I
which
tested out the
which, except for the
case.
deterioration, has been nothing but good for me.
Yeah, they're definitely pretty good cases other than some deterioration stuff.
Yeah, which makes... But I don't know a lot of people... But the problem is that their keyboard cases are so expensive. Like, for
Especially
the budget iPad, it costs
Magic
$160.
Yeah, and the Magic keyboard case, like the really expensive one, like $300 something.
You can get an iPad. You can get a whole other iPad, brand new from Apple, for $330.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it definitely does not make sense how Apple is selling an iPad keyboard case for as much as a whole nother iPad.
Yeah, but other than that, I have to go in about 4 minutes, so I think that we should wrap up now.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I'm beginning to run out of things to talk about, so I think that we should just end the podcast here.
Yeah.
Do you have any final things that you want to say?
Subscribe to both of us, and I think this podcast is really fun to be on, and I'm glad that I'm the co-host, and I'm looking forward to having some guests on in May. And thanks to everyone for tuning in and watching this.
Yeah.
That's about it.
There will be an audio version. And for the audio listeners, thank you for listening to this. And I am the iTunes fanboy.
I'm Tabbypears.
And we will see you again next week.
Thank you for having me on. I'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.